Dad, please don't come to Jason's wedding. It's better if you stay home. My father's voice cut through the living room that evening, cold and final. I froze on the staircase, accidentally overhearing this conversation. Grandpa Henry, a 78-year-old man sitting in his worn favorite armchair, slumped forward as if someone had just punched him in the chest. But it's my grandson's wedding. Grandpa's voice trembled, barely audible. Exactly. My mother. Patricia interjected sharply. And we don't want you embarrassing us in front of Emily's family. The Thompsons are people of standing. Do you understand? I'm your father, and I'm trying to build a legacy for my children. Dad roared. I can't have you making us look bad in front of them. You'll stay home. End of discussion. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and let me know where you're watching from because what happened next completely changed our family's life. And I guarantee you won't believe it. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 29, a freelance writer living in Portland, Oregon. This story started 3 weeks before my brother's wedding. Jason, 26, works in marketing and was about to marry Emily Thompson, daughter of one of the city's most prominent attorneys. But to understand why my parents could say such cruel things to my grandfather, I need to tell you about our family. My father, Richard Mitchell, owns a small to medium-sized real estate development company. He's always been proud of his success, constantly saying he built everything with his own hands. But the truth few people know is that 15 years ago, when Dad was drowning in debt after a failed project, Grandpa tried his best to help by mortgaging his small house to lend Dad $15,000. For a retired electronics technician living on Social Security, that was everything. But Dad still resented him because it wasn't enough. Dad once screamed in Grandpa's face, only $15,000. Other people lend their kids hundreds of thousands. You're the worst father a man could have. I still remember Grandpa trembling, unable to speak. I was 14, standing behind my bedroom door, tears streaming down my face. And my mother, Patricia, she always believed Grandpa favored me over Jason. The reality was simple. I was the only one in the family who cared about him. Every week, I visited Grandpa at least twice, bringing him food he liked, sitting and listening to stories about working at Boeing for 35 years. Jason, he only called when he needed someone to dog sit or when he needed money to go out with friends. But in Mom's eyes, Grandpa's affection for me was unfair. Every time he gave me a birthday gift, even just an old book or a scarf he'd knitted himself, Mom would grumble, "Why doesn't Dad give Jason something like that?" I tried explaining countless times. No one listened. Then came Jason's wedding preparations, an elaborate affair with over 200 guests at the Sentinel Hotel, tables at $150 per person. Emily's family was powerful. Her father was a senior partner at Portland's biggest law firm. Her mother, a professor at Portland State University. They were the type of family my parents desperately wanted to break into. And Grandpa Henry, a burden, an embarrassment. 3 weeks before his wedding, the tension at home escalated. Mom started mentioning the problem of where Grandpa would sit. "We can't have Dad at the main family table," Mom said one evening as we discussed the seating chart. "He won't know how to behave around people like the Thompsons." "What are you saying?" I couldn't believe my ears. Grandpa is Jason's grandfather. "Sarah, you don't understand the social dynamics here." Jason chimed in, sounding as arrogant as our parents. "Emily's parents will judge us on everything. Grandpa Henry in that ratty suit from the 1990s. How will that make us look?" I stared at my brother like he was a stranger. "Jason, that's Grandpa. He mortgaged his house to help Dad when he went bankrupt. That's between Dad and him, not me." My blood boiled, but before I could respond, Dad cut in. "Sarah, go to your room. This is an adult conversation. I'm 29 years old. I have a master's degree. I'm financially independent, but in their eyes, I'm still the child who doesn't understand." The following week, I witnessed Mom accidentally not sending Grandpa an invitation, while distant relatives all received theirs. When he asked about it, Mom said, "Oh, you live here with us. You don't need a separate invitation." But I knew the truth. They were deliberately hurting him. Then came Thanksgiving, 2 weeks before the wedding. The whole family gathered at my parents' house, a sprawling 3,500-foot home in West Hills that Dad had recently purchased after a successful deal. The dining table was lavishly set with turkey, cranberry sauce, mashed potatoes, pumpkin pie, a picture-perfect Thanksgiving feast. But when Grandpa arrived with a homemade apple pie, the kind Jason had loved since childhood, Mom barely glanced at it and said, "Just leave it in the kitchen, Dad. We already have enough desserts." I saw Grandpa's face fall. He set the pie down on the kitchen counter without a word. Throughout dinner, no one talked to him. Everyone just discussed the wedding, the venue, the DJ, and the honeymoon trip to Maui. Grandpa sat silently at the end of the table, occasionally picking at a small piece of turkey, staring down at his plate. I couldn't take it anymore. "Grandpa, are you enjoying yourself? Are you happy?" "My dear granddaughter, I'm very happy." His voice was so soft, only I could hear. "As long as I can see you kids healthy, I'm happy." My heart shattered. After dinner, while everyone watched football on TV, I followed Grandpa outside. He stood on the porch looking out at the autumn garden with its fallen yellow leaves. The Portland wind was biting cold, but he wasn't wearing a warm enough coat. "Grandpa, come inside. It's freezing." "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just wanted some fresh air." I stood beside him, not knowing what to say. After a long silence, he asked, "Jason's getting married. When will my granddaughter get married?" "You know, I'm still focused on my career." "I know," he said softly. "But don't be like me. I spent my whole life working, and now I have nothing but an old house and memories." Something in his voice sent chills down my spine. But before I could ask more, Mom called from inside, "Sarah, come help me clean up." That was the last time I spoke with Grandpa before the wedding. 1 week before the wedding day, I heard a major argument from the living room. I was in my home office. I'd stopped by my parents' house to pick up some old documents. Dad's voice was loud. "I've decided you're not coming to the wedding." "But, Richard," Grandpa's voice shook. "No buts," Dad shouted. "Do you know who the Thompsons are?" Edward Thompson is a partner at Sherman and Howard. Martha Thompson is a respected professor. They have connections everywhere. And you, a retired electronics technician living on Social Security checks. I'm your father, and I'm trying to build a legacy for my children." Dad bellowed. "I can't have you embarrassing me in front of them. You'll stay home. Period." I rushed downstairs. "You can't do this." Dad turned to me, face red with anger. "This isn't your business, Sarah." "It is my business. Grandpa is our family. He mortgaged his house to help you when you went bankrupt, and now you're treating him like this." "You don't understand anything about business and social standing," Mom interjected. "Edward Thompson could help your father land major contracts. We need to impress them by abandoning Grandpa, by pretending he doesn't exist." "Sarah, enough." Dad snapped. "Either go home or be quiet." I looked at Grandpa. He just sat there, hands trembling in his lap, staring at the floor, not defending himself, not fighting back. My heart broke into pieces. "Grandpa, I won't go to the wedding if they don't let you go," I said. "No, sweetheart," he said hoarsely. "You go. Jason is your brother. I don't want you to miss important memories because of me." "But Grandpa, I'll be fine, dear. I'll be okay." The way he said it terrified me, but Dad had already pushed me toward the door. "Go home, Sarah, and don't cause any drama on Jason's wedding day. I'm warning you." I left the house with tears in my eyes, guilt weighing heavy on my shoulders. I called a few friends. They all told me to respect family dynamics and don't make a scene. Even my best friend Rachel said, "Sarah, I know it's hard, but sometimes you have to pick your battles. Your brother's wedding day isn't the right time." Maybe they were right. Maybe I was too emotional. Maybe I should just accept it and move on. But I couldn't. The night before the wedding, I drove to Grandpa's house, a small 2-bedroom home in southeast Portland, a working-class neighborhood where he'd lived for 40 years. All the lights were off. I knocked repeatedly. No answer. His car was still in the garage, so I knew he was home. Maybe he'd gone to bed early. I decided to stop by the next morning before heading to the venue. Wedding day. The Sentinel Hotel sparkled with crystal chandeliers and fresh flowers everywhere. I wore my dusty rose bridesmaid dress, makeup carefully applied, but my heart felt heavy. I tried calling Grandpa all morning. No answer. The ceremony went smoothly. Emily looked stunning in her white wedding gown. Jason smiled radiantly. My parents beamed, greeting everyone, especially the Thompsons. Everything was perfect. But I couldn't stop thinking about Grandpa sitting alone at home, eating alone on the day his grandson got married. After the ceremony, the reception began. Open bar, live band, elegant dinner tables. I sat at the family table next to some cousins. Everyone toasted and laughed. Dad stood up to give a speech. Today is the most important day of my son's life. I want to thank everyone for being here. Especially, I want to welcome the Thompson family as part of our Mitchell family. Jason, my son, has grown into a man I'm proud of. And Emily, welcome to our family. Everyone applauded. I clapped too. But all I could think was, what about Grandpa Henry? The man who sacrificed everything for this family. Midway through the reception, Mom suddenly remembered. Oh, we haven't gotten Dad Henry's wedding gift yet. Wedding gift? Jason frowned. Yes, Mom said. Traditionally, grandparents give gifts to grandchildren on their wedding day. Dad always does that. Remember when Sarah graduated high school? He gave her that vintage watch. Oh, right, Jason said, as if suddenly remembering a potential source of income. Grandpa hasn't given me anything. He should have given me cash or something. I couldn't believe my ears. What are you people saying? He wasn't allowed to come here and now you're demanding gifts. Sarah, it's tradition, Mom said coldly. And stop being dramatic. After the reception, we'll stop by Dad Henry's house to get the gift. You people are absolutely shameless, I whispered. But no one heard. They returned to their champagne and laughter. The party lasted until 11 p.m. As people began leaving, my parents, Jason and Emily, decided to stop by Grandpa's house. I went along, anxiety churning in my stomach. When we arrived, I immediately knew something was wrong. The house was dark. No car in the garage. Dad used his spare key to open the door. When he turned on the lights, we all froze in shock. The house was empty. No furniture, no pictures, no TV, no sofa, just a few cardboard boxes in the corner and a letter on the kitchen counter. Mom shrieked, "Where did Dad go?" Dad grabbed the letter and read aloud, "Dear family, by the time you read this, I will be settled in my new home at Elmwood Senior Living Community. I have sold this house and most of my belongings. After much thought and with Sarah's help, I've made arrangements for my future. The proceeds from the sale have been allocated as follows. I've paid for 3 years of care at Elmwood up front, ensuring I won't be a financial burden to anyone. The remaining $47,000 has been placed into the senior support fund that Sarah manages through her nonprofit work. This money will help elderly people in our community who are struggling with loneliness and lack of family support. I realize now that I have been a burden to this family. I am grateful for the years we have shared, but I believe it's time for me to step back and allow you all to live your lives without the embarrassment of an old, retired technician who doesn't fit into your social circles. Sarah, my dear granddaughter, you have always been the light of my life. Thank you for respecting my decision and helping me find a place where I'm valued. Please don't worry about me. The people at Elwood are kind and treat me with genuine respect. I finally feel like I matter again. I wish Jason and Emily a lifetime of happiness. I'm sorry I couldn't attend the wedding, but I understand. Please do not try to contact me. I have asked my attorney, Martin Cooper at Cooper and Associates, to handle any family matters going forward. Take care of yourselves, Henry Mitchell. Deafening silence. Then Dad exploded. He gave the money to some charity fund. That stubborn old man, that's our inheritance. He had no right. Wait, Sarah helped him? Mom's head snapped toward me, eyes blazing. You knew about this? I started. You helped him steal from this family? Dad roared. He didn't steal anything. I shouted back. It was his house, his money. And yes, I helped him set up the fund because I actually care about what he wants. $47,000. Jason's voice was shrill. That could have been my down payment on a house. How could you let him throw it away on some random old people? I looked at them feeling rage and disgusted to my core. Is money all you care about? Grandpa just left the house he lived in for 40 years. He felt so lonely and rejected he had to leave. And all you can think about is money. Sarah, you don't understand. Dad started. No, now you're going to listen to me. I roared, my voice shaking with fury. For years, Grandpa loved this family. He mortgaged his house to save you when you went bankrupt. He made food for Jason by hand since Jason was little. He sat through family dinners, silently enduring the contempt and abandonment from all of you. And today, on his grandson's wedding day, he was banned from coming because you were afraid of being embarrassed. You don't know anything about social pressure. And Mom tried to argue. What do you know about real family? I shouted, tears streaming down my face. Family isn't just about sharing blood. Real family is spending time and sharing every important moment together. It's caring for each other unconditionally. Grandpa gave you that. But what did you give him? Shame. Emily, the new bride, stood in the corner looking terrified. She quietly said to Jason, maybe we should go. But I wasn't done. And Jason, you know what? You only called Grandpa when you needed money, needed him to dog sit, or needed someone to fix your old laptop. Did you ever ask him about his life? Did you know he worked at Boeing for 35 years, helping build airplanes that millions of people fly on? Did you know he lost his wife, our grandmother, to cancer when you were only 5 and he raised Dad alone? No, you didn't. Because you never cared. Jason bristled. Well, you're not perfect either. I'm not perfect, but at least I visited him. I was the only one in this house who did. Dad stepped forward, pointing at my face. All right, enough, Sarah. We'll call this Lawyer Cooper and demand the old man come back. We're family. We'll have a meeting. And no, I screamed. You will not harass him anymore. He made himself clear. He wants boundaries, and I'll make sure you respect that. What are you going to do? Mom sneered. I'm going to see him. I'm going to make sure he's okay. As for you people, I looked at each of them, my gaze ice cold. You should be ashamed of yourselves. You lost a wonderful man because of your greed and arrogance. And I hope you have to live with that every single day. I turned and walked out of that empty house, leaving them standing there in silence and shock. The next day, I found Elmwood Senior Living Community, a well-maintained care facility in Beaverton with manicured gardens and a welcoming entrance. When I walked in, I was immediately struck by the atmosphere. Unlike the sterile institutional feel I'd expected, Elmwood felt warm and homey. The receptionist, a woman in her 40s named Diana, smiled genuinely when I asked for Henry Mitchell. Oh, Mr. Henry, he's probably in the community room. Everyone loves him already. Let me take you there. As we walked through the halls, I noticed residents chatting in common areas, staff members stopping to have actual conversations with them, not just checking tasks off a list. We passed a sunroom where several elderly people were doing watercolor painting together, a nurse sitting with them and laughing at something one of them said. When we reached the community room, I saw Grandpa sitting at a table with 3 other residents playing cards. A staff member named Marcus, a young man probably in his late 20s, was teaching them a new game. Mr. Henry, you've got that poker face down. Marcus was saying, grinning. Nobody can tell what cards you've got. Grandpa chuckled, actually chuckled in a way I hadn't heard in years. Then he looked up and saw me. Sarah, my dear. His face lit up. Marcus, this is my granddaughter I told you about. The writer, the one who visits you every week. Marcus stood up, extending his hand warmly. Mr. Henry talks about you all the time. Says you're the only one who remembers his birthday. My throat tightened. Grandpa, give us a moment. Grandpa said to his new friends. Of course, of course. An elderly woman with kind eyes. Her name tag said Margaret patted his hand. We'll be here when you're ready for the next round, Henry. And you're still joining us for movie night tonight, right? Wouldn't miss it, Margaret. I watched them leave, then pulled up a chair next to Grandpa. We sat in silence for a moment. You're probably angry with me, he said softly. Angry? No, Grandpa. I struggled to find words. I'm heartbroken that it came to this, but I'm not angry. I helped you because I respect your decision. You were the only one who listened when I said I'd been thinking about this for months. He said, when I first mentioned Elmwood to you last summer, you didn't dismiss me or tell me I was being dramatic. You actually toured the facility with me. You helped me understand the contracts and the finances. I remembered that day. Grandpa had called me asking if I'd come look at a place with him. When we arrived at Elmwood, he'd been so nervous, but also hopeful. We spent 3 hours there meeting staff, touring rooms, watching how they interacted with residents. I saw how the nurses addressed people by name, how they asked about their families, their interests, their history, how they didn't just see patients, they saw people. The staff here actually care, Sarah, Grandpa continued. This morning, a nurse named Lisa brought me coffee. She remembered I take it with 1 sugar and a splash of milk. She remembered from my first day here. When's the last time your mother remembered how I take my coffee? Never, I thought. Mom had never bothered to learn. I wiped away tears. That sounds wonderful, Grandpa. At dinner last night, people asked me about my life. Really asked. Margaret wanted to know about working at Boeing. Another resident, Robert, used to work in aviation, too. We talked for 2 hours about the old days. When's the last time anyone in the family asked me about my work? Also, never. They never cared. And the best part, Grandpa smiled. Nobody here looks at me like I'm a burden. Nobody sigh when I tell a story. Nobody checks their phone while I'm talking. They actually listen, Sarah. They actually see me. That's when I fully understood. At Elmwood, Grandpa wasn't the embarrassing old man with the ratty suit. He was Henry Mitchell, Boeing veteran, widower, grandfather, garden enthusiast. He was a person with a history, with interests, and with value. The fund you're managing, Grandpa said. I wanted to help people like me, elderly folks who feel invisible in their own families. Maybe we can fund programs that bring young volunteers to visit seniors. Maybe we can help pay for activities that bring meaning to their lives. You're good at organizing these things. I'd been running a small nonprofit focused on community storytelling for 2 years. Grandpa had been following my work closely. Of course he had. He was the only family member who actually read my blog posts and asked me about my projects. I'll make sure every penny makes a difference, I promised. I know you will, sweetheart. He patted my hand. You've always been the best of us. Just then, Marcus returned. Mr. Henry, sorry to interrupt, but it's almost time for the afternoon concert. The pianist from Portland State is coming today. You said you didn't want to miss it. A concert? I asked. They have live music 3 times a week, Grandpa explained. Different performers, students from the university, local musicians. Last week, a jazz quartet came. The week before, a children's choir. It's wonderful. Would you like to stay for it? Marcus asked me. Family members are always welcome. I'd love to. We walked to the gathering hall where about 30 residents were settling into comfortable chairs. The atmosphere was cheerful, anticipatory. A young pianist set up at the grand piano in the corner. Staff members helped residents get comfortable, chatting with them about their day. During the concert, I glanced at Grandpa. His eyes were closed, a peaceful smile on his face, completely absorbed in Chopin's Nocturne. When was the last time I'd seen him this content? That evening, as I was getting ready to leave, I saw Grandpa in the dining hall laughing with a group of residents. Marcus was telling a story, gesturing wildly, and everyone was cracking up. Grandpa looked 20 years younger. A week later, my parents and Jason tried to arrange a family meeting through attorney Martin Cooper. Cooper, a stern man in his 50s, met them in a conference room at his firm. I was present, but to support Grandpa, not my family. Cooper began, Mr. Mitchell has asked me to make clear that he does not want any contact from the family for an indefinite period. He sold his personal property legally. He allocated his funds as he saw fit. Both his care at Elmwood and his charitable donation were executed according to his wishes and Oregon law. He has every right to do so. But that's family money. Dad objected. Mr. Richard Mitchell, that house was in Mr. Henry Mitchell's name. He had full ownership. He has the absolute right to sell and allocate the proceeds as he wishes. The charitable contribution was made to a legitimate organization managed by her daughter. If you continue to harass Mr. Mitchell, we will file for a restraining order. My mother stood up, furious. That old man is my husband's father. We have the right. You have no rights, ma'am. Cooper interrupted coldly. Mr. Henry Mitchell is a competent adult with full legal capacity. He has made decisions for his own life. Please respect that, Jason whispered. So, he doesn't want to see us anymore. Correct. Except for Sarah Mitchell, with whom Mr. Henry very much wishes to maintain a relationship. Dad looked at me, eyes full of resentment. What did you do? What did you tell him? I told him the truth, I replied, voice calm but firm. And he made his own decision. A decision he's been considering for months. By the way, this didn't happen overnight. You just never paid enough attention to notice. They left in frustration, but there was nothing they could do. The months that followed were like an earthquake through our family. Dad's real estate company hit serious trouble. A major project failed. He went into debt for hundreds of thousands of dollars. This time, there was no grandpa to mortgage his house and help. Dad had to figure it out himself. Selling his luxury car, downsizing the office, even mortgaging the West Hills house. Mom had to cut spending. No more weekly shopping trips to Nordstrom. No more monthly spa treatments. No more lavish brunches with her wealthy friends. At first, Mom blamed everyone. But gradually, in that scarcity, she began to look at herself. She began to realize that her priorities had been wrong. She cared more about status than love. Jason had it worse. His marriage to Emily lasted only a year. Emily divorced him after discovering Jason wasn't mature or financially stable enough to build a family. She wanted a responsible man, not a 26-year-old child, still depending on his parents for everything. After the divorce, Jason moved back in with our parents, working an entry-level job at a small marketing company, earning barely enough to get by. Once Jason volunteered at a soup kitchen as part of community service after getting cited for drunk driving. There he met several elderly volunteers. They told Jason about their lives, about sacrifices, about being dismissed by their children and grandchildren, about loneliness. An old man named Walter told Jason, "Son, family isn't about what they can give you. It's about what you give them. Your time, your love, your presence." Those words made Jason think. As for me, I expanded the senior support fund that Grandpa had seeded. I started writing more, not just about Grandpa, but about all the elderly people I met at Elmwood and other facilities. I wrote about their lives, their forgotten stories, their loneliness in a society too busy to care. My blog went viral. Thousands of people shared the posts. Hundreds of elderly people emailed me with their own stories. Tales of children who'd abandoned them in nursing homes, of holidays spent alone, of feeling invisible. The Oregonian did a feature story on the forgotten generation. Grandpa's story made the front page. The senior support fund grew. We started programs connecting volunteers with isolated seniors. We funded activities at care facilities. We provided grants for elderly people who wanted to pursue hobbies or education but couldn't afford it. Every decision Grandpa and I made together. It was his money after all and his vision. And I visited him religiously. Twice a week I sat with him in the sunroom, in the garden, at concerts. I watched him thrive. He gained weight. The staff made sure he ate well. His eyes were brighter. He had a community. One day, I arrived to find Grandpa teaching a woodworking class in the craft room. 6 other residents were gathered around as he showed them how to sand a piece of pine. "My grandfather taught me this," he was saying. "And I taught my son, though he never had much interest in it. But it's meditative, you know, the rhythm of the sanding, the smell of the wood." I stood in the doorway watching. This was Grandpa sharing his knowledge, his skills, his history. At home, no one had ever asked him to teach them anything. After class, we walked in the garden. His garden plot was thriving. Tomatoes, zucchini, herbs. "You know what I realized?" He said, "I spent 40 years trying to earn my family's love. But love isn't something you earn. Real love is freely given. And these people here," he gestured around at Elmwood, "they give it freely, just as you always have, sweetheart." 2 years later, my family began to change slowly, painfully, but genuinely. Dad rebuilt his company from scratch with more humility. Mom joined support groups and learned to live more simply. And Jason started therapy. He began volunteering regularly at a senior center, not for court-mandated hours, but because he wanted to. One day, 3 years after that wedding, Jason showed up at Elmwood. I was sitting with Grandpa in his room when Jason walked in holding a homemade apple pie. "Grandpa," Jason said, voice trembling. "I am sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I needed you to know that I finally understand. I understand everything I took from you and never gave back." Grandpa looked at Jason for a long moment. Then he smiled. Not the sad smile I'd seen before, but a genuine one. "Come here, son." They hugged, both crying. Jason started visiting monthly, then weekly. He brought his new girlfriend eventually, a kind woman who worked as a social worker. She and Grandpa talked for hours about elder care systems and how to improve them. Mom and Dad took longer, but eventually they came too. The first visit was awkward, full of apologies and tears. But Grandpa, in his wisdom and kindness, forgave them. Not because they deserved it, but because forgiveness freed him too. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. Some wounds take years to heal, but they were healing. The Senior Support Fund flourished. We helped over 200 elderly people in its first 3 years. We connected volunteers with isolated seniors. We funded art classes, music programs, garden projects at facilities across Oregon. And every success story I shared with Grandpa. You know what the best part is? He told me one day, sitting in his garden plot, hands dirty from planting spring bulbs. "These flowers won't bloom for months, but I'm planting them anyway because I have months ahead of me. I have time. And for the first time in years, I'm not afraid of that time. I'm excited about it." That's when I knew he'd made the right choice. He hadn't given up on life by moving to Elmwood. He'd reclaimed it. So, if you were in my situation, what would you do? Would you have the courage to confront your family, or would you stay silent to keep the peace? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories. Thanks for watching, and remember, real family isn't about blood. It's about love and respect. Family is not just about sharing blood. Real family is about spending time and sharing every important moment together. And sometimes family isn't the one you're born into. It's the one you choose, or the one that chooses to truly see you. I don't owe my family anything. I owe myself the truth. And I owe Grandpa Henry the love he always deserved.